But it is going to cause much more friction. You know, there is no, I talked about this on our podcast last week, the royals. How on earth is the king going to reconcile with one son and keep the other son, who is so at odds with his brother, on side? That's going to be incredibly difficult for Charles to do. And a reconciliation of sorts between Harry and the king is probably going to lead to more discord with his other son.
Well, last year, Prince Harry had this to say to CBS News.
I can't see a world in which I would be bringing my wife and children back to the UK at this point.
The world must have changed. After 6 years, the Sussexes are coming back to the UK later on this month. In fact, Harry and Meghan have enrolled their children at schools here, and they will start in the new term in September. Roya Nikkhah is royal editor of the Sunday Times. Roya, did this come as a shock to you? Or I think there had been rumblings, hadn't there, that possibly Harry in particular was having second thoughts about his life in California?
Well, as I wrote last week in the Sunday Times, he wanted to spend a lot more time here and come back a lot more regularly. What I didn't know then was that he was actually going to be moving back permanently in a matter of weeks. I think it's much more of a sort of natural decision for Harry than it is for Meghan to come back. There's no doubt, you know, it's been very obvious, I think, for the last few years that Harry has been happier on his visits back here. You know, when we see him doing engagements here, although, you know, they come sometimes at difficult times. The last week he was here was tricky because of that big court case loss against Associated Newspapers Limited. But when you saw him doing his engagements at the end of the week, you know, he just seemed happier being here. And we know he was delighted to have finally had that reunion with the king. So I suspect for him, it's much more of a natural move back. I think for Meghan, it'll be much more challenging on many levels.
Right, yes. Well, would you care to speculate about contents of, let's say there is a royal family WhatsApp group excluding Harry and Meghan. What kind of messages do you think were being exchanged in the, yesterday evening and first thing this morning?
Jane, you know me, I'm never one for speculation, but... what would the WhatsApp groups have been saying with the royal family? Look, you know, we had royal sources telling us late last night when this news broke that the king was naturally delighted to spend more time with the Sussexes in a private capacity, but there was a very strong brief from sources close to the king that it doesn't change anything in terms of their position in the royal family. There is no half in, half out. That keeps being rammed home by sources close to the king. In terms of what William and Catherine will be thinking, I think it's probably a very, very different reaction. I suspect William will be far from thrilled. As far as I am aware, the brothers haven't spoken for the best part of 4 years, nor seen each other when Harry has been back in the UK. I think William will have very mixed feelings about Harry's return, not only personally for that relationship, but also what it means for the future of the institution. Because, you know, William sat at that table with his father and with the late Queen at the Sandringham Summit with Harry, and always singing from the same hymn sheet that there is no half in, half out option from them. Now, the king might still be saying that, but you are going to have an alternative Montecito court relocated to the UK. Harry and Meghan will be going out to charity galas. They will be doing royal engagements, and those lines will be blurred, and so that is going to be increasingly difficult for this king and for the next, I suspect.
Yeah, I think that's true, because they have a star quality. There's no doubt about it. When you see them on manoeuvres, they have a little bit of whatever it is that I don't have that's incredibly important, because people flock to it and want to be a part of it. Now, I also think that with Harry back in the country, won't the fact that he doesn't speak to his brother just be put into sort of a sharper focus, really? And it's actually a desperately sad situation that two children who went through so much together very early in their adolescence no longer have anything to say to each other. That's miserable.
It has been very difficult. It will come into much sharper focus when he is back here. I think, you know, in terms of the conflict in the royal family, I suspect, you know, it's definitely been felt by both sides, but I think it's probably a desire from Harry as well to spend more time with the other side of his family, as well as the king. We know that he spent time with Charles Spencer when he came back here a few weeks ago, and I suspect he's wanting his children to know that side of the family, Diana's side of the family, But it is going to cause much more friction. You know, there is no, I talked about this on our podcast last week, the royals. How on earth is the king going to reconcile with one son and keep the other son, who is so at odds with his brother, on side? That's going to be incredibly difficult for Charles to do. And a reconciliation of sorts between Harry and the king is probably going to lead to more discord with his other son.
Yes, I mean it's honestly it's a miserable situation. However much you look at it, and I just wonder too, though, whether there aren't that many working royals, are there, these days? And that stardust that Harry and Meghan provide, in the nicest possible way, isn't something provided by the more dutiful, frankly, older members of the royal family who still are out and about and doing their thing. Won't there be a real temptation in the end to give them some kind of public-facing role back?
Well, with regards to what you say about the older members of the family, I take your point, but actually it's what's interesting and what will be interesting to track now when they're back is the polling at the moment from most British public is that William and Catherine are still the most popular members of the royal family, and Harry and Meghan kind of languish at the bottom of those polls. That may change when they come back. In terms of a public-facing role and official royal duties, I genuinely think that the king, you know, it's not just the king who will decide that. It will be William too. Those decisions were taken at Sandringham 5 years ago, 6 years ago, by the stakeholder then, the Queen, the future king, and by William. I do not see a world in which Harry and Meghan resume official working duties. Whether or not we see them more in public life, and we undoubtedly will we start to see them at some family occasions? Possibly. But I don't think you will see them back on, you know, sovereign grant funded overseas tours on behalf of the government. I think if that was to happen, I think, you know, William would have a strong view on that. And I don't think there's much appetite from the king for either. We keep being told there isn't.
Right. And people who are concerned about the king's health, is there a possibility that perhaps he really is becoming quite frail and Harry feels the need to come back? What about the other point of view, which is that his return might actually not help the king's recovery from his cancer? What would you say about that?
I don't know about the king's health, Jane. I mean, we keep being told by the palace that, you know, it's moving in a very positive direction. His workload is absolutely packed. He looked on good form when he arrived at Balmoral yesterday. You know, he was diagnosed 2 years ago. He's still receiving treatment. There's no doubt that, you know, that can't not be on Harry's mind. You know, he wants to spend more time with his father while his father is around. Long live the king. We hope he does. But I think really I guess that this is a decision by Harry twofold. He wants to spend more time with his father. He wants his children to know their grandfather and a little bit of their, you know, heritage and their roots. But he also is much happier in the UK than he is in America. It's as simple as that. It's not the same for Meghan.
But I was going to say it can't be the same for her. There were all sorts of reasons that the couple came up with when they left the country. What, if anything, has changed in terms of Meghan?
I don't think anything has changed in terms of Meghan. I've never got the feeling that she had a particular inclination to rebuild her bridges with the UK or with members of the royal family here. But she is married to Harry. She can see that he is missing his home. He is repeatedly, you know, every time he talks about how difficult their life was here, he also, you know, says words to the effect of, the UK will always be my home. I love my home. And you know, she must know that he is much happier here than he is in America. And so, you know, she's going to give it a go. Let's see how she fares.
Right. And the couple are still together. Plenty of people probably wouldn't have given them this long, but they are very much still together.
They are moving back to the UK together, Jane. Yes, they are, very much so.
Thank you very much. That is the Sunday Times royal editor, Roya Nikkhah, talking there about Harry and Meghan coming back to the UK. Well, years, of course, of well-documented rocky relationships with the royals and the press. Could the move be an attempt at a kind of reputation reset for the couple? We can talk to a crisis comms expert, Andy Barr. Hi, Andy, how are you?
Good afternoon. Not too bad. How are you?
Good, thank you. If you were advising Harry and Meghan, what would you say their first move should be?
Very importantly, I think their first move should be to take a bit of time away from the limelight and step away from the fanfare.
Right. By doing what? Nothing?
I think so. I think the best examples of crisis comms management are where people have took a bit of time away from the limelight, come out of the spotlight, assess their situation. Obviously, they're in a slightly different position in that they have a need to earn money. They have an expensive lifestyle, an expensive security, I guess, situation. So they need to try and earn some funds. But I think right now they just need to assess where the public see them.
Right. So they should lie as low as is humanly possible for a period of time. That would be your advice.
It would, yeah. And I think that they are both very media savvy and that we can expect to see some allegedly unplanned, some cameo, candid appearances. And that will just be their comms team trying to test the water and see what consumers and what the public think about them.
And their relationship with the press, will they attempt to set up interviews, for example, TV appearances, albeit in a slight podcast possibly, relatively low-key stuff? What would you recommend?
Well, again, in crisis comms terms, you'd always say to people, especially around reputation recovery, come back with one big interview. And obviously they did that with the Oprah Winfrey interview in America. I'm not sure they can do that here just because there's not that many media out there they could fully control in that way. So I think they will come back. A podcast is a really good idea because obviously it's slightly less wider spread, shall we say, than they would get in terms of scrutiny from mainstream media. So that could be an opportunity. And let's not forget, he's come on the back of a really bruising court case as well.
Yes, so he will have to tread very lightly in his relationship with the press. Some people will be amazed that in the light of what happened in court just a couple of weeks ago, he is making a return. Were you surprised by it?
I was very surprised. I know a lot of commentators are saying they'd heard rumours and speculation. I 100% hadn't, and I don't know where those rumours came from. As I understand it, it was a very last-minute decision, although the school situation would say something else. But I think what is interesting is that they've got their own social channels. They can own their own message. They can avoid the media to a certain degree, but that scrutiny is still going to be there. But we all love a comeback story in the UK, and we're very passionate about giving people a second chance. And I think it'll be really interesting to see how the media reacts.
And if the brothers were to make it up, I mean, that would be a real feel-good story, wouldn't it? Which I think most of us would embrace.
I think we are all rooting for that. We want the royal family back as one. We know, obviously, Charles is going through this very difficult cancer diagnosis. And I think it's great for the family. It's great for the UK public. And it's great for everyone's mental health. It's brilliant for Harry and William.
Thank you very much. That's Andy Barr, crisis comms expert. I mean, Roya was saying that she wasn't entirely sure that William's mental health would have benefited from the news that Harry was returning to the UK, but Andy was choosing to be a bit more optimistic. Let's bring in listeners to Times Radio. Why not? Harry and Meghan could be the new Richard and Judy. One bit of speculation there from a listener. I'm not sure. Miles, stop talking about these two. We don't care. You keep ramming them down our throats. I mean, Miles, it simply isn't true that people don't care. If you look now on thetimes.com at the number of comments underneath the best read articles of the day, all of which are about Harry and Meghan, there are thousands. And everyone commenting is invested in one way or another, even if they're only commenting to say that they're not interested. Believe me, they're out there. Rex, appropriately, says, stop wittering on about royal nonsense. Right. Harry is, this is from Will. Oh, not that one. Harry is a self-entitled, egotistical man-child, and I think he's politicised his element of the monarchy. And another message, not overly supportive of Harry. It's from Adrian. If this country needs lessons in arrogance, entitlement, attention-seeking and self-pity, then the Ginger Whinger and his partner do have a role in the UK. If we don't need these lessons, then we don't need them. Mick in Shrewsbury says Harry is a spoilt brat. OK, keep your thoughts coming within reason.